This is Jan Uhelski from Rhapsody, and we're talking to Tori Amos today about her new album. First, I have to tell you, I love this album. I review all your records, but this one, I don't know. And you look awesome on the cover.
Thank you, Jan.
You really do.
Thank you.
No, you look like a supermodel. I love
very
it.
kind. I've been working out for the last, I don't know, forever it seems, but the last year and a half.
Yeah.
But not working out as I should. It's kind of silly what I do, but it makes me happy.
Well, what do you do? Because, I did notice that your body had changed a lot.
Well, besides playing every day at the piano, which I know people think, yeah, right, but you do get those arm muscles going. But for the but from below the arm muscles, I go into the steam and sauna room at Martian and hot tub room, so it's really, really warm. And in England, let me tell you, sometimes you'll do anything to get some warmth. And we have a catalog of music, probably 6,000 songs. Mm-hmm. And I just turn on the music, I blast it, and I dance my ass off. And I'm a terrible dancer. I wouldn't dance for anybody. But I close the door and lock it, and I just go.
That's amazing because you really do. I mean, you have absolutely, no body fat. And those pictures, for the album, I mean, seriously kept going, wow, it's like this is like a different person, Well,
it's strange. I think maybe as Tasha's gotten older, I want to be healthy for her. And yet I don't live an extreme lifestyle. I think it's more about having a balanced lifestyle.
Yeah.
More European. We eat. We don't overeat. And I eat pretty healthy, but I don't say, well, I'm not going to have this or that if I really want it.
Yeah,
I don't live on pizza and burgers. I don't do that. But, we have a balanced kind of eating lifestyle, and I think that's important. And there's a vitality. Being a mom, it's really been this magical ride.
Oh, I know. I have a daughter, too, and there's nothing that you'll do in your whole life that's as good as this, or as fulfilling.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm learning. I think she's at an age now, you see, where we're out of that stage where it can be very irrational certain moments.
Yeah.
And now you're talking to somebody who...
I know. It's like light breaks when that happens. Then you've given birth to your best friend. You have a companion, and everything changes.
Yeah. I must say, it's been a huge shift. And I think when she came home one day, she was 4.5, and she had come home from being with one of the support system people.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Mommy, Tori Amos can be a bit naughty. And I said, how do you know that? And she said, I've been on the computer. And I said, how'd you do that then? And she told me, and she said, Tori Amos in the pig emoji. I said,
oh my God,
dear.
That's really funny. You knew that day was going to come, but at least you didn't do like Madonna's sex book, and have her find that. I mean, it's a lot more benign and bratty, naughty,
Well, we had to still have the conversation, and it was important that we had the conversation because then I think the music was able to then be what it's choosing to be now.
Right.
When you're in that very nurturing mother place when they're infants and that 2, 3, 4-year-old,
right,
where they're talking with you and they're asking questions and they get scared and they need this stability of who mom and dad are.
Mm-hmm.
I made sure that she wasn't frightened by the energy.
Yeah.
She goes on tour with us, so she would go to bed before I would do the shows, and so she would only know what she knew. But then, now that she was getting older, she's exposed to more, and we were going to have to explain that what we share at story time and as mom and daughter is different than when I'm an artist.
Right.
And she, of all people, she gets that.
Oh, wow.
She understood the different women in the beginning of this project. I floated this idea with a couple people, and it did not get understood by all in the beginning. So I closed ranks, decided not to show anybody except the internal specific team.
Mm-hmm.
And Tash. And Tash role plays a lot, so this was not a stretch for her.
Well, but it's funny because what I thought, because I do have a daughter, and I thought, well, my daughter's older than yours, but she went through rose petal dolls, the rose petal girls, and then the Barbies. And the thing is each of the dolls has a different persona. They're part of like a gang anyway. So this seems to me, it makes such natural sense for someone who has a daughter.
I think I must say to you, when I would watch her and her friends, they have their dressing up box, and they move from being a doctor to being a cheetah girl, to being a veterinarian, to being anybody they want to be, and they don't see it as, oh, I can't do this because it's not what I'm going to be. They don't think in those terms.
That's amazing too. I mean, that's an enlightened place for a kid. I don't know. I think probably all of them, until someone tells them that they can't have that sense of abandon, that they can be anything.
Yeah, I wonder though, as we get older as women, we have to start choosing, well, who are you really? And sometimes your friends especially in your teens, in your early 20s, it's, well, what are you pushing?
Yeah,
what is your image? And if it doesn't fit within people's, opinions of you, then you do change who you might really want to explore and express, because you want to get along with your family or your boyfriend or your friends. And I do think there are a lot of repressed sides of the self that we leave behind as women.
But it's really funny because, they say that people go through so many career changes in their lifetime, yet you have been who you are now since you were 5. I mean, do you think the fact that you take on these different personas, like on Scarlett's Walk and the Beekeeper, and then now as the dolls, do you think that's the way that you deal with that, because you are a musician and that's such a strong path for you?
Well, I think, when you say that, nobody's asked me that in that way. I think these are all extensions of the feminine, and who I choose to be in my personal life is very private, and I separate that from who I choose to explore as an artist. When I get behind that piano, I'm not just mother, daughter, friend, and wife.
Right.
And since I was a little girl, I was able to leave the fact that I was 5 years old and a minister's daughter outside and away from that piano.
Right.
It was, this is my private space and relationship with this instrument, and this instrument plays me as much as I play it.
Oh, yeah.
And so there was a loyalty to the code of musicality more than there was a loyalty of being a proper daughter or a proper wife or a proper...
But that's great, though, because it's like you're infused with that spirit to create. I mean, that's the bigger drive. I mean, I have to say that the maternal instinct is as strong as the need to create, because it's a different kind of creation. I don't know which... I assume that the real you is the one off stage, but who knows? You really come alive behind that piano.
Do you know, it's funny you say that. I mean, my husband said to me once that his father gave him really the best advice he was ever given before his father died. He was very close to his father. Mm-hmm. And, I work with my husband as well as have a personal relationship, but we've been working together since '94 in the studio. He's one of the main creative forces in the records and on the road. And so we're together a lot, and he told me that his father had said, you always have to ask, how's my wife? And then you have to ask, how's Tori Amos?
Wow.
And husband really understands that when we walk into that studio, we are not husband and wife.
That's amazing that you can separate like that.
Well, if we didn't, we couldn't create, because you can't. What's happened in our private life and those roles of being parents and being part of a family and all that goes along with that, paying the bills and everything that a couple goes through, when you walk in there and plug in, there has to be creative forces that don't have these constraints. You have to be able to close the door on, I don't know, what would you call it, the status quo that sometimes is just how to get from Wednesday to Thursday as far as, your taxes and all that junk that can really pull on the creativity.
No, but I think that's really amazing. I mean, do you think that's because you knew each other professionally before you knew each other personally, that you have that unique relationship?
He's convinced of that.
Yeah, it seems like it would be.
He thinks that if we hadn't worked together first,
right,
that when we're going through something, as everybody does, you go through different phases, especially when you have a child. Sometimes you just, as parents, they've been sick for a week, they have the flu, you get tired, but then you're on the road.
Yeah.
You've got to do the show. There is something in us that the professional side, the engineer with the sexy calves, and the redhead at the piano, even though that's about ready to change her look, but that kicks in, and we look at each other, and he will look at me sometimes he'll pass me as I'm 5 minutes from walking on stage, and I've been preparing myself mentally for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
He'll pass me and say, I want to see my wife at the end of this show, but have a good show, Tori Amos.
I mean, why was he the right guy? Because the thing is like you do have a formidable presence, and it must be hard for people, or prior to him, hard for people to approach you. Yet here was this man that you fell in love with. Like, was he the right one because he wasn't daunted by the Tori Amos persona?
Well, I think he is. We're opposites in a lot of ways, and he's British. I'm American, even though I'm there quite a bit.
Right.
We still have a house here, and he loves it here, but he couldn't leave England. He looked at me and said, I want to marry you. I want to know what you're like when you're 80, pottering down to the garden, but I can't leave British soil for long.
Yeah.
And we can tour for a year at a time. We can do that, but there's something in him. That is his power spot. And Tash and I Tasha said to me sometimes, I would love to live at the beach house, Mommy, forever. And I would say, yeah, but, Daddy needs to be in England. And she will say, yeah, but we're good at traveling. And so you make these choices as a couple. He does things for me. There's a side to him that, he gets on his motorbike and just needs to be alone. And I think I'm very social. And he's very not.
Yeah, wow.
But he is very much a part of the sound crew. He loves the crew. And if I hadn't been with him, I'm telling you right now, I could have never stood up to the authority in the music industry. I couldn't have done that because I knew what was going on, and I knew the truth because I had access to the crew.
Right.
And the crew they were crossing lines and saying, you need to know what's going on with this, that, and the other. So in the mid-'90s, it was my crew that stood by me, sort of like good pirates would.
Yeah.
And let me know where there were lies and where I wasn't being told really what was going on. So in a way, I chose my crew over the corporate side.
That was great because you know what? They have their ears to the ground. And, there's just things that artists are not told. I mean, there is so much that artists aren't told, because that would hinder your performance or your productivity or the manipulation to get most out of you,
That's a very good point. And there's some things that, frankly, I shouldn't be told.
Right.
Especially, eventually I get told everything that's relevant to our creativity and to our business life. I mean, there's certain things, if it's just mean gossip, then it's gross. Why smell that crap? However, before you take the stage, we have firm parameters on what gets backstage, because everybody has to be. It's a discipline.
You don't want to knock your groove either, because you're there to get in the moment, to get in that zone that you have to be as artists. And business things or gossip is just going to really, change the vibe.
No, it does change things. And I think when you made a point that certain artists don't know what's going on their tours, and they don't realize how their crew is being treated.
Right.
And that's why you have to have a team of people that you delegate to, that you respect. And you must know, everybody is not going to be a soulmate on the team, because they are not. Not all of them get along.
Right.
No crew is going to get along all the time. But they have to have respect. Right. And there has to be a professionalism. And that's the way that you can only get all those people working together.
And do you think that because Mark was part of that initially, that's why you have such a close relationship with the crew members, because he's kind of like the captain? I mean, you may be, or you're co-captains of this ship.
Yeah, in a way I do. And I think that crew are very loyal amongst themselves around the world. They have their own network. It's sort of, if you imagine, it's counterintelligence for the music industry.
It is, though. I love that.
And so I do know what's going on because of through the crew information. And he is very close to different members of different crews around the world. And I think this loyalty, but he's going to be that. He's more of a motorcycle guy who can fix his own bike than a diva on stage calling his agent because his instrument doesn't work.
Well, no, that's good. Plus, he can fix things around the house.
Which is very handy.
I love that.
And it's very sexy.
I know. I don't have one of those at home, and I so know what it's like,
Yeah, I can't fix anything. I don't cook or clean.
Yeah,
but he knows that. He says, he will look at me and say, "Why, do you think for 1 minute I married you because you couldn't cook or clean?"
Right, exactly. There's just, what? It's just, that's an old form. That's not, I think it's much more important to be a partner and to have someone who matches your energy. There's an equality. The cooking, what? I can hire people. That's why God made takeout,
I agree.
So, well, which person does he like the most in the American Doll Posse? I mean, is there one he relates to?
That's very intriguing. That is yet to be discovered. He's keeping very quiet, husband, because he wants a date with all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Who wouldn't?
And so he, I don't know. I think that as we're getting ready for the tour, there are a lot of unknowns ahead of us.
Yeah.
We're beginning our rehearsals. We've done some in L.A. right now because we were doing TV in the next week. So I ran into some of the guys, and yet we all reconvene in about a week in Cornwall to begin our serious rehearsals for the tour. So a lot of stuff will be worked out. I do know that the show will start with one of the 4 women, who is not Tori, and then she will take stage because, as I've tried to explain, she does have access to that big back catalog, and we have to have that to have a 2-hour show.
No, that's true, though. Because I know I read that for each show you're going to dress up as a different character, but will you have costume changes during the show, or will you stay
I have to move into Tori, yeah. Because it's, I can only hold a couple of them at a night. I mean, it's not just you change the clothes. It's you have to really take on their internal process.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on them for many, many months now, and yet it is more performance art, and you have to walk into that space to become a container for this.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have more of a narrative, and I couldn't develop a narrative if this became about how many girls can you get into their outfits, because I couldn't develop their internal process in 2 hours.
Did the blogs help you? The fact that you're blogging in each persona?
It is helping. It's I'm enjoying that side of it. It's it's one of those things where I know where some of the stories are going, and yet I also know some of the stories are going to change because the audience is going to be a part of this. As the women get out of portraiture and into 3D on stage, that's going to affect the story. As we both know, this is what improvisation's about. So I can't tell you. There is a big unknown, and yet that's exciting.
Well, because you will do the songs as they're written probably, but it's probably in between things that you say that will change, right?
Well, you got to figure every audience is different.
Yeah.
And how it all works is it's going to affect the story. I mean, I don't know how, I can't tell you how, but I know it will.
Are you always as fearless about jumping into the unknown? I mean, this is really a big undertaking.
No, I don't think I always have been that fearless. I think maybe sometimes being a mom, I found that you really have to just sit on the floor and, well, it is about improv.
Yeah,
you get given a rabbit or a bear, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of some story.
I know.
And
I used to set a timer for an hour to play Barbies with my daughter because it's all I could take, like doing my part of the role. Playing. I mean, I'm a writer, so I should probably be really good at this, but I couldn't take it longer than an hour.
Well, I think an hour is pretty good.
I
think you get a gold star for an hour because some of my mother friends look at me and say, "Are you kidding? That's why we have play dates. We don't do that." And yet I do because, I don't know, I think it's kind of fascinating to see where her mind is.
Right. It's so revelatory when they play. You find out things because, what's really funny? What I really did once is I had a little puppet, a little giraffe puppet, and I spoke to, my daughter's name is Haley, and I spoke to her in the puppet persona, and she told the puppet things she wouldn't tell me. That was bizarre, So yeah, I think the playing with your child is huge.
Yeah, it's huge, and I've learned so much as she's gotten older. But I've also been given the green light by Tash, whether knowingly or unknowingly, because I knew that she could deal with the energy shift from the safe sanctity of the home to the world of the stage and that artistry.
You said a really great quote about burying the tomahawk to give your daughter a different view of her mother, and now you can dig the tomahawk up again. And I loved how you said that. It's so fierce.
Well, she's really at a place where she can. We'll walk past where the costumes are being gathered.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her favorite people in the world is the stylist Karen Binns, who I've worked with since Little Earthquakes.
Yeah.
And so the clothes are coming down, and Karen pops down, and it all gets, shown to Tash. And Tash now goes by, and she looks at everything.
Mm.
And the other night, she waved to. She said, "Good night, Clyde. Good night, Santa. Good night, Isabel. Good night, Pip. You are so cool. And good night, Tori Amos."
That's so funny.
And she was off to bed, and I thought, wow, it's amazing how children, it's not a hard leap for them.
No, it's really not. Were you tempted to include a male doll?
No.
Yeah.
I have 3 Orify. I have to deal with the fact that it would be a strap-on.
Yeah.
And, I had to deal with what I really had. My rules for myself were that I couldn't I have to deal with my own physicality. Whatever that was at the time, I have to morph internally and with hair and makeup. I can't be bringing in, extra limbs because that defeats the purpose. It's got to be, the whole idea is this is the divine feminine dismembered and remembered, going back to that Greek pantheon. And every woman can apply those character types in their life, but through her own body. You have to be able to wake up and, whatever you pick up as items where you want to change how you maybe present yourself, hair and makeup and clothes, all of us can do that. We don't need somebody to do that for us. And those were my rules.
It's funny. I love the fierceness of Pip But when I look at the album cover, I love the way you look with, your hair straight with the Bible. So, I mean, I have to say that that's the one I vibe to, but the songs, I like the Pip songs a lot.
I'm glad you like those.
Oh, yeah.
They've been really fun to develop.
Oh, they're really strong.
This should be a wake-up call to all those who are curious about where women stand in this time, especially in America, that it is not okay. If you look at the Christian myth, the mother was for sexuality.
Right.
And so they are not really okay. The moral majority is not okay with mothers claiming their sexuality.
No, it's so true. But, I think that the overriding message of this is that it's now time for women to get responsible about the direction of, the war of the world. Like, I think that I think it's a quote you had about before the personal was political, now the political is personal. And I hope I got that right. But I like the idea that it's time for women to, whether they vote or whether they just say it's not okay. This is taking what you've been doing for the longest time one step further.
Well, I have incredible faith in my fellow sisters. And when 2 years ago we didn't unify, that doesn't mean we vote the same, but that we didn't ask the questions that needed to be asked, which the main one is, how could we be in such a dire situation?
I know.
And if we had all asked that without our myopic little blinders on, but for just a day, said, what kind of world am I passing to the next generation of women? The glorious dynams, the women before me sacrificed, the women, our grandmothers, what they've done for us to be where we are, and what are we doing for the young ones? Because it can be incredibly, as I said, we have to be not just the group of women that are obsessed with the circumference of our own navel.
Yeah, it's true. There has to be some action, especially as mothers. I mean, for me, the best thing that I can teach my daughter is no woman on woman crime, that these are your sisters, Because look at the people before who didn't, because we were all chasing after the same man or some evolutionary biology. We wanted the same things. It's like you have to suspend that.
Well, you said something really important, and this is something that I've had to address in myself, and maybe doing this project, believe it or not, is really about not being so competitive.
I know.
Now, there's a healthy competitive, but then there's a vicious competitive.
Right.
And sometimes we support anybody but another woman's success because there is this program in us that thinks for us to win, another woman has to lose because there are not enough places for us.
Right. That's really true.
But the truth is that there aren't the same amount of places for us as producers in the music industry, as, say, guitar players, because for all kinds of reasons, or prime ministers, etc. So we have to look at the reality that, no, there aren't the same amount of women as men in powerful positions. However, we're never going to get there if we're envious when one woman achieves it.
I so know, and I so believe that to my core. And I have to say I was a lot more competitive when I was younger, but whether it was my daughter or just the sense of responsibility for the world, if I don't help those women, we're just going to stand in one place. We will not move forward. Forget that the ERA didn't get passed a zillion years ago, We just need another chance to wake up.
Well, hopefully, step by step, I think that there's an opportunity right now for us to decide that we're a powerful force.
You do a lot for that. Well, you do a lot for that, and I think that that's why you're so well loved by women and by men. Because you have that sex kitten with the whip thing, but you also have that compassionate listener.
Well, thank you for that. I got to tell you, every day you do stuff that you're not so proud of, and you say stuff that you wish you could have done better. But that's what being on the planet's about.
Yeah.
And I must say to you, sometimes I think, God, I got to give people a break. If I expect them to give me a break, you got to give a girl a break. Okay, so she pooped on her manolas. Give her a break.
That's so great. I know.
And on that note, I better run to radio.
Go. Thank you so much.
It was great speaking with you.
You too.
Bye-bye.